Hi, thanks for tuning in to High on Horror. I'm Drew.
And I'm John. This episode and every future episode is dedicated to all the horror hounds and smokers out there who want to expand their knowledge of the genre and have a good time.
Preach, brother. Today we're covering the dark and heavy movie Slapface. Slapface is about a boy who befriends a witch amongst being constantly bullied at school and abused by his older brother at home. It's a powerful film that strikes a chord in the viewer of remorse and sadness, but also is a good, haunting, tragic horror movie. We're joined today by the director Jeremiah Kipp, who's going to talk with us about everything from the origin of the film all the way through to its execution. All that and more today on High on Horror. Interviews, reviews, and the latest news all rolled into one. Let's give it up to our editor, Josh, who made that awesome theme song for us that you just heard. He produces and edits this show every week, and he does not get enough credit. He definitely saved our asses last week.
Yeah, there was a lot. I don't know. It seems like every couple months, all of a sudden, there's something quirky that pops up, but he finds a way to fix it. And we'll plug his album for us. Josh, because you did a good job, we'll plug the album for you. You can check it out at hensleysound.bandcamp.com. Again, that's hensleysound, HENSLEY, hensleysound.bandcamp.com. So
we're here to talk about Slapface today. That movie really kicks you in the taint, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. It's definitely heavy.
Yeah, it's a deep, dark, heavy movie. I'm looking forward to speaking with Jeremiah about it, actually. But first, before we get into all that dark shit, I'm gonna need to smoke. So it's time for Strain Wreck.
Choo choo, motherfucker.
The segment of our show where we discuss which strain we're getting wrecked on in each episode. All right, man. So John, you brought the goodies for us, right? What do you have for us today?
I didn't have anything with a name. I'm sure Josh is annoyed. I'm making all kinds of noise with trays and shit. He always yells at us about that shit. I don't have a name one from a dispensary. I picked it up from somebody off the streets. I call this the Snickle Fritz.
You got that?
You see Pineapple Express?
Yeah.
He's like, he's not getting Pineapple Express. He's getting Snickle Fritz.
Or in Delaware, it's known as that Street Loud.
I feel like everything. Somebody be like, "What do you got?" Oh, it's Headband or Sour D.
Blue cheese, Blue Dream.
Blue Dream and Girl Scout cookies. I feel like was what they named like everything. And I'm like, why does this taste different than the other headband I had last week?
You never know what's what. So,
I'm gonna spark this blunt though.
Yeah, man, definitely. So, the Evil Dead game. To you listeners out there who are playing, let us know what you think. I'm seeing mixed things online.
Same.
But it was I wanted to bring up that bitch sold over 500,000 copies in its first week. Man, people are fucking buying that game. The Evil Dead. I think people underestimate the Evil Dead. Like, for as popular as it is, as many people that bought that game, you'd think there would be a lot more Evil Dead movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah. With the game, like, yeah, same thing. I've just been seeing mixed reviews. I've seen people. I was trying to hold that one in. But I've seen people where they're like, it's too hard. That's a hell of a one to stop on. That's what she said. But then I saw other people that they're like, this game's fun as hell. But the one thing I do see is everybody's bitching that the multiplayer is kind of broken.
See, I didn't see that. What I saw was that the before you have a weapon, basically they said like you're just like flailing your arms in front of you, like the way that your fight is basically flailing your arms in front of you, hoping to like punch a deadite or something.
I saw something that we were probably one of our same groups we're in, but
I still want to play it though. I will play it. I will buy it eventually.
And it's only what, $40 or something?
Yeah.
Which was the same as the Friday the 13th one.
Yep.
And the Friday the 13th one, good God, we had Vincent DeSanti on. We talked a little bit about it. The multiplayer in the beginning of that was so broken because you could just kill your own team and shit.
Yeah.
It was so bad, but the lawsuit kind of hurt that. But there was some nights I had a couple people that I used to write for like a sports blog with, and we would just put like 4 or 5 hours a night into just playing that. It was so much fun. I hope they come out with the second one now that maybe the lawsuit's getting resolved. But
yeah, I would hope so, man. I mean,
but the Evil Dead one, I'm kind of hoping maybe that goes the same way. They'll get the multiplayer fixed out. I assume like Gun Media. It's not a big studio working on it. If I don't even remember who put it out. Do you?
No, I said it in prior episode, but no, I don't remember now. But no, it's crazy though, because I actually heard the opposite of you. I heard that the Friday the 13th lawsuit is like far from over.
I thought all that shit got decided.
Right. Well, I don't know. Like, I guess. I
thought they gave the rights back for the original to Victor Miller. I don't
know. Well, now they're saying apparently that it's still like, they're still, balls deep in the lawsuit about the rights and everything. So I don't know. I don't know who's right anymore, because it just doesn't seem to end. So you listeners out there, if you guys are up to speed and know your research, let us know who's right. Is this fucking Friday the 13th lawsuit about over with, or are we just getting started?
I wanted to say the Evil Dead game. It's made by Saber Interactive.
That was it, Saber. Yes,
they've released the game World War Z. I did not play that.
No, me neither.
NBA Playgrounds I played, which was fun, and WWE 2K Battlegrounds,
which you've played, right? Or Battlegrounds, isn't that the exaggerated version of the the big
but it
chunky?
It was still fun.
I remember like you do like a rock bottom on somebody and they do like four
They're
front flips.
They're a decent company.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing we want to talk about, we saw from our friends on Instagram at Leppy Laddie. We're getting a Leprechaun pop vinyl.
Yeah, that's a good page. It's dedicated to just the Leprechaun series, both Warwick Davis and Lyndon Porco.
Yeah.
I almost forgot his last name for a second, but I didn't.
I mean, I'd say I probably like the Leprechaun series probably a little more than you, though.
Yeah, I mean,
I still like the one in space, dude.
No, man.
It's so bad, but I love it.
No, it's like, I don't know, man. It's, the first film is good, and the second one sucked. The third one was all right, and then after that, I didn't like anything until,
I got you to like 3, right?
Until Lyndon Porco came along. What's that?
I got you to like the third one, right?
Yeah. You
Damn,
I will say,
Halloween
hold on, no. You
Leprechaun 3.
You actually, here's the deal. Growing up, I watched the first Leprechaun a lot. But I saw the second one as well when I was younger, and I hated it. I thought it was terrible.
I don't hate it, but it wasn't. I'll be honest, I hardly ever watched the second one.
Well, I gave up on it. After that, I figured, this series was like a one and done. The first one was good. The second one was just a dramatic drop. So I called it quits. It wasn't until St. Patrick's Day several years ago that we came over that you were like, watch the third one. So I watched it. I broke down. I watched it. And by that point, by the way, I had really given up, because after I had given up, they had made like however many fucking more sequels.
Yeah.
And but you told me to watch 3, and I did. I liked it. So I went out and I bought like a whole pack of all the movies, and I watched all of them.
That pack was cheap.
Like, I know.
I bought it too.
Yeah, and I was like, 3 was good, but the rest of, there's had Leprechaun in the Hood,
I love that one too.
A friend with weed is a friend indeed.
Right.
So there,
that should be the most high on horror Leprechaun.
Yeah,
entry.
We should have Warwick Davis as Leprechaun from that movie in studio for an interview. Could you imagine that? Awesome. A Leprechaun as the interview in
and
character.
Ice-T.
No, we'd just be intimidated the whole time.
Nah, I would. We need. I feel like Ice-T would have to be in person because we got to smoke with him. I don't even know if he even smokes anymore.
Dude, we smoked some good weed.
Ever since he joined the SVU.
Well, I guarantee you that he would probably be shitting all over our weed. We got some good weed. He'd come in here and just be like, put that shit away.
Bitches.
Put that shit away. We rolling with my shit.
Be like, yes, sir.
But
but also Leppy Laddie, and I'm in full support. I don't know if they came up with the petition or not, but there's one on change.org to have NECA make an ultimate leprechaun.
That would be awesome. Like
you would have to display it next to the Chucky, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, a company that might have the balls to do it right now is Trick or Treat Studios. They're the ones that did the Chucky, and that Chucky is a legit reproduction, like a legit reproduction of what was done in the movie. Like, that is not a bootleg. Like, that is 100% passes and screen accurate in every aspect. Even the fucking coveralls to the stripes on the shirt. I remember you could legit tell bootlegs from the non-bootlegs due to the stripes on the shirt, because it was a specific pattern, and Trick or Treat Studios got that shit right. And they're doing 7-inch figures. They're doing Pumpkinhead figures now. I think they would probably be willing to do it. Either then they do 12-inch figures. I'm going to be straight. I would, seeing as how they did a Chucky and everything, I think it'd be really fucking cool if they did a 1/1 scale like little person size, like Warwick Davis's Leprechaun. That would probably be scary as shit, but I'd buy it.
Yeah, I mean, I want both. I want a Lyndon Porco and a Warwick. I want both.
I'd like. See, I've thought about it over time, and I think that I definitely prefer Warwick's performance over Lyndon's, but I do think that I thought Lyndon's his outfit, his like old looking costume, I thought was cooler looking. Like outfit for outfit, I thought that Lyndon's got him beat with the drip. You know what I mean?
I don't think you can beat Leprechaun 1, but then if I had to pick another one, it would have to be Leprechaun Returns because I do like that outfit.
Same, and then 3. I'll do 3 after that.
But yeah, like I definitely hope they make one.
But wait, you said they were doing pop vinyls, right? There's 3. There's the Amazon exclusive, an FYE exclusive, and a regular. And I think the Amazon glows in the dark, if I'm correct. And he has like little damage on his face or spirals on his face or something. But the actual pop vinyl, I believe, the exclusive one like glows in the dark or something from Amazon or FYE.
I see the splattered one. I do like that one. Big Apple Collectibles is selling that glow in the dark one. Damn, dude, that thing's $25 from them.
Get it now. You think 25 is bad? Wait till it's like sold out and people are trying to get it.
Oh, I didn't even notice he has a little flashlight. That's why he's glowing in the dark.
I didn't know that either. No shit.
There's a little flashlight in his hand. That shit's hilarious. we need a bigger screen that I could like share what I'm looking at to like.
We need a Leprechaun. We need one of him on the pogo stick.
I need one of each.
We need one of him on the pogo stick, and we need one of him in the car.
Oh, the pogo stick, man, that one would be great.
That scene scared the shit out of me growing up.
I want one of them, like one of them. I mean, I feel like they should have did more stuff with the hands. Like you should have did one of them like shining stuff.
Oh my god, yeah. Like, dude, do you hear what happened to my voice after that last hit? I went full Vin Diesel. I don't
Family?
know. My voice got real deep all of a sudden after that hit. I don't know. Maybe I'm feeling a little Sylvester Stallone here. I don't know. I don't even know if that sounded like Stallone. Anyway,
I'm trying to see. I don't know that the glow in the dark one's exclusive because I keep seeing all these websites.
Okay.
I mean, maybe it is in store, but like online, I just keep seeing all these different ones.
Either way, it's pretty fucking cool looking, and it's been.
Yeah, and I didn't know they were doing the 3 until you just mentioned it, and then I had to look that shit up.
Yeah, I plan on buying one. Now let's get an Art the Clown one done. I think they should do it. Damien Leone makes his own little Funko looking that you can buy at his table.
Yeah, those things are awesome.
Yeah, but I mean, like, let's see Funko do it. I think an Art the Clown from Funko would be pretty badass.
Would they do it though?
I don't know. I mean, American Werewolf in London would be nice though to see them do the actual werewolf. That'd be pretty funny. Or like, could you imagine if they did a mid-transformation? Like that model I have over there of David Kessler all on his knees. That'd be a funny ass pop. Pop vinyls look funny. You know what I mean? They're very funny depending on. Well, they look funny
like
no
even the
what.
Michael Myers and Jason ones. Like Jason looks kind of half sad.
Exactly. So does Leatherface, and the funniest one that I have is the Herschel with one leg from The Walking Dead.
I got the Chucky cart. That's the one I got autographed.
Yeah. We're just talking about pop vinyls now.
I know, dude. I have way too many. But you know what series they need to make just a series of?
What's that?
TV show Dexter.
Dude, I thought that before, man. You know, and I don't know if you ever
I
watched.
want an Angel. I want a Masuka. I want
a Trinity Killer.
Ooh,
I want
Trinity
a Harry
Killer.
and a Deb and a Dex. But yeah, no, that's actually
Dokes.
That was such a good idea that I lost my train of thought on what I was going to say.
welcome.
So, yeah, Dexter would be that would be an awesome line of figures for sure. Pop vinyls or whatever.
All right. Well, now I think it's time to move into horror history, and we'll get to Slapface eventually. We promise we won't. We won't talk too long. But first, let's take a second to respect some classics.
This week in horror history.
So this week for horror history, let's start out.
Horror hiss.
1981, Dead and Buried.
Yeah, man. Dead and Buried. That movie. Good movie. Great underrated zombie movie starring a young Robert Englund. This doesn't pull punches. It stabs you right in the eye with a fucking needle.
Ow.
Literally. And that's, it does that and worse. Watch the movie if you haven't seen it. Mandatory. I believe it's streaming on Shudder. Don't hold me to that, though.
1983. We've already talked about this. Psycho 2.
Yeah, I know we talked about this, so we won't go in depth. I know that we talked about this last year on Horror History because I remember you talking about the woman at the end who's Norman's real mom at the end of the film, and you were like, "She's a real bitch," and I remember it cracked me up. So yeah, we don't need to cover that one, and I know your thoughts on Norman's mother, but yeah, that is one of the best horror sequels ever.
Yeah, and then 1990, another one we covered. Wasn't that our Love Gone Wrong episode? I think Frankenhooker.
Yep, and we talked about
that was on my
Frankenhooker.
list.
I think we mentioned it in last year's Horror History, and we've talked about it
We
scattered
spoke a lot,
throughout.
so we forget a lot about what we've talked about.
We talk about Frankenhooker a lot. We brought it up to Gabe Bartalos on our interview. We've never done an episode, but Frankenhooker's popped in a lot.
Yeah, that's kind of weird when you think
It's an
about
awesome movie.
Hey, what's the movie you're going to talk about a lot on your podcast? Oh, Frankenhooker.
I love that movie though, dude. I mean, if I
yeah,
heard
it's
somebody
good.
say that,
I don't have a problem with
if
it.
I heard somebody say we talk about Frankenhooker a lot, I wouldn't be like, "Oh, I'm not interested." I'd be like, "Oh, I'll listen." All you Frankenhooker fans out there,
Frankenhooker.
just listen to our episodes, just on the rare occasion that we might mention it. You never know.
2003, we have Wrong Turn, starring Amber Heard. Everybody else making a joke, we got to throw one in there.
The only one.
Obligatory pop culture reference.
There you go. You officially dated us. We're dated now. The only one. This is the only one in the series worth watching. That's all I really
pretty
say.
much.
I remember in high school I loved it and it held up, but the movies that followed, man, holy shit.
Did this come out around Joyride?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. It
all
was in
these
that. It
shit's
was
about
in that.
cars.
Yeah, it was all that young, sweaty people in wife
Young,
beaters
sweaty people.
and wife beaters. The whole shebang.
Crazy truckers. 2008, The Strangers.
One of the best home invasion movies ever made, period. It's still creepy. It's still violent. It still hasn't lost its edge after all these years. And Liv Tyler is still hot.
Have you seen the sequel, Strangers Pray at Night?
I did. I thought it was fun, but in no way did
I
it
feel like
live
it
up to
got
the first
unfairly
one.
shit on.
Well, it wasn't. It didn't. It wasn't nearly as serious of a movie, and it was. So to me, it wasn't nearly as
it did
good.
have Christina Hendricks. I'm a fan of that.
If you could pull yourself out of if you can pull yourself out of expecting the first one from it and just enjoy it as a fun, senseless slasher with a good soundtrack, you'll have fun. But that first film, that slow burn film, man, that film got under people's skin. I think that's what people wanted, and they got more of an in-your-face slasher. I didn't mind it, but it wasn't the first one. But yeah, your girl Christina Hendricks had the name drop, huh?
Yeah, I actually saw that. I did see that in theaters. I thought it was pretty good, and I feel like it got horrible reviews.
I don't remember hearing reviews about it. I just remember seeing everybody posting about it. Kind of like The Purge. It's kind of like one of those movies that was everywhere, but I didn't really hear good or bad. Just something everybody was watching at the time.
And from 1985, we have a film directed by a nobody and produced by a nobody. Never heard of these people ever. Lamberto Bava and Dario Argento.
Who are they?
Never heard of them.
Yeah. Also,
Are they Spanish?
they might be Italiano. I don't know.
Italiano?
Yeah. Demons, also known as Demoni, starring Goretta. It's a pretty epic name, Goretta. But anyway, this and its sequel, Demons 2, was directed by Lamberto Bava, son of Mario Bava, who's the famous Italian filmmaker who's given us gems as Blood and Black Lace and A Bay of Blood, $5 for an August Moon, Black Sabbath, Black Sunday, etc. That dude was a beast.
A lot of black.
Yeah, and his son Lamberto Bava didn't have as much of a successful run as his dad, but he gave us Demoni, and that's in my top 5 Italian horror films. It's one of my favorite films ever. It's such a fucking blast, man. And he also did the lackluster sequel Demons 2, as I mentioned, but he also directed Macabre and A Blade in the Dark, and those are great. Macabre is about a woman. A lot of people don't know about this movie, but A Macabre is about a woman who sleeps with her husband's head, and when she's not sitting on it,
right?
when she's not sitting on his face, she's putting his head in the freezer.
Okay.
Yep.
I
Knowledge
don't really
nug-
know how to add to that.
knowledge nug about demons. The guy in the mask giving out the golden ticket is director Mikhail. So I always mess his last name up. Suovi.
Siovi?
He is Suavi. I always mess his name up, man. I'm terrible with names.
Suave.
He directed The Church and
Yeah,
The
which
Sect
was completely rewritten from a third movie.
and Delamore, or Cemetery Man, and of course his masterpiece Stage Fright, which has a guy in an owl mask offing people with an axe and shit.
I mean, they're all bloody.
That's right.
It's the only way Italian horror gets it.
Amen. Fuck yeah. Well, yeah, yeah, like I guess, we talked about Frankenhooker on a bunch of episodes and Psycho 2, so yeah, that about...
So go back and listen.
I don't think there's any Godzilla movies I need to surprise you with this week.
No, but I see you got a Godzilla book just sitting on the shelf directly in my eye line, like straight ahead.
Godzilla will always be around in one way or another. Behind the scenes, in the scenes...
Gamera's better.
Oh, no. All right, well, now let's move on to Puff Puff Ask, the segment of our show where you listeners send us in questions through social media at highonhorror420 or email at highonhorror420@gmail.com.
Yo, man. Puff, puff, pass.
Okay, so Lily from New York messaged us on Instagram, and she asks, my husband is throwing a 3-movie marathon in our backyard this summer using our projector. We're thinking about having some family and friends over. There won't be kids, but adults, and a lot of drugs and alcohol.
A lot of drugs? Y'all doing ketamine? Like, what do you mean a lot of drugs? I mean, you want to do some extra more than weed, I ain't going to judge you, but I feel like that's just a weird way to say it. It's just like, there's a lot of drugs.
Why did you go to ketamine?
I mean, they're saying a lot of drugs, so I'm saying, like, how far are you going? You going down a K-hole?
Well, there's a reason I didn't include a last name in this.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get Lily in trouble. Anyway, so yeah, where was I? Oh, there won't be kids, but adults, and a lot of drugs and alcohol. What would you recommend? I trust asking you guys because you guys have a great sense of humor, and I feel like you'd know the perfect movies for a scenario like this. We love listening to your show. Thank you, Lily. Again, thank you for listening. The drug comment, Johnny, you got in my head with the ketamine thing. I'm just like, damn, I kind of want to be there. I want to know this. Like, we might have to roll there.
Are we invited to this party?
That's what I'm saying. Is this an invite?
New York. It was only 2 hours away. I could be there.
New York.
I feel like my answers. I mean, if you ain't ready, I can jump.
No, I got. I was gonna say. My question is there a pool? You're saying backyard, and we got a projector. So if there's a pool, then Jaws, definitely Jaws.
I didn't even think about that.
If not, I'd go total slasher camp with it. Like I'd say cheerleader camp, sleepaway camp, and The Burning to edge off that cheese of the last two. But if there's a pool, I'd say Jaws, Piranha, and I'm gonna hit you with a Godzilla movie.
Oh, jeez.
Just not the '98 one.
So you mean the best one they ever made?
No.
Mine are. I don't know. I feel like you went a little better with the slashers. I feel like mine, just to get everybody good. I didn't even think about a pool, so there's no pool scenario in mine. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I feel like that's a good one to throw up on a projector.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Friday the 13th. You can go with the original 3, or I'm sorry, the original through 6 minus 5.
1 through 4 and 6.
Yeah, basically. I feel like that's another good one. And then I was struggling for a third one. I want to get like the outdoor feel because you're sitting outside. So
those are 2 good choices though. Texas Chainsaw is definitely
the
good.
other one I thought, like, I feel like if you're showing it out in the backyard, maybe it's a bigger backyard. Maybe there's some trees in the yard. Go with a Halloween.
Yeah. Or like, what about setting a projector up in the middle of the woods and watching Blair Witch?
I didn't care for Blair Witch.
I was gonna say it didn't scare me. So I mean, in theory, that's a cool idea. But I would be sitting there just bored. And
I feel like if we were
keeping
keeping in the woods, we're watching Friday the 13th.
Yeah, or I think Sleepaway Camp would probably go into the mix as well. One. Yeah.
And so I guess we'll get on to our second question here. Kelly from California asks, I've tried to get my sons to watch the old Goosebumps shows with me, and they don't find it scary. They like the Haunted Mask episode, but that's it. They don't find it scary, and that's disheartening because I grew up with that show, and there were many episodes that scared the shit out of me and my sisters. So what would you suggest for a 7 and 9-year-old to watch? It might scare them, but not be too much for them. That's
kind of a hard question.
Goosebumps, I feel like I feel like I was probably 11 and 12, somewhere around there when those started coming on Fox. So I remember reading the books, but the show was like never scary to me.
Yeah, the one, Don't Look in the, I don't know, dude, what's the one with the plant hand in the basement? I've seen the book cover in my head. You know, the one with, I can't remember.
I don't remember any of those titles. Like Night of the Living Dummy, I think's the only one I remember.
Yeah, both the basement one with like the Swamp Thing Dad and
Swamp Thing Dad
and the Haunted Mask I always thought were good, but yeah, I agree. I don't think any of them scared me either, even back then.
And for a 7 or 9-year-old, it really depends on the kid. Because I know like 7 and 9-year-olds that are like terrified of anything. So it's really like, I think, all dependent on the kid.
Yeah.
If you have a kid, well, I mean, if they're saying they don't find it scary, I mean, you could always go with like the TV edits of a lot of slasher movies.
I think Terrifier's on Netflix. Maybe
man,
maybe they're ready for that.
I'm
fucking around. Don't listen to me. That was terrible.
Maybe
advice.
Sallow.
Oh God, that was terrible advice. Yeah.
But I feel like any of the 80s slashers would work.
Yeah.
Like I feel like
you just have to shield their eyes from some titties. That's all.
Well, like I said, go with like the edited versions, like you can watch on like TV.
TV versions. That's not a bad idea.
Like an easy one, I feel like's Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Unless they're one that's scared easy, then I would probably not go with that one. But these are kids that's saying that they don't really find like Goosebumps scary, so I feel like that'd be a good one for them.
Wait, so I mean that's actually a good idea. Nightmare on Elm Street would probably scare the shit out of them, but I'm going to take a second before I make my answer or give my answer. I wanted to bring something up to you. You have stated before that Heather Langenkamp is your Scream Queen, right? Like she's your favorite. If like of all the Scream Queens, she's your favorite. Well, I actually had like a revelation, and I don't know. I was big of a fan of all of these slasher films and this particular series of genre. She's not a slasher in a slasher film, but it is a horror film, and she is a Scream Queen. I don't know why like this person never dawned on me before as someone of like, you know, Barbara Crampton. First of all, is like, Barbara, don't call me Scream Queen Crampton, so I'm not gonna call her a Scream Queen. She's apparently above that. Whatever, if that's what you have, that's how you feel, okay. But my Scream Queen, my pick is Ashley Lawrence, who plays Kirsty in Hellraiser.
That's a good choice.
I thought of that. I was like, oh, that's a pretty good one, right? That would be my
she
Scream
was
Queen.
in the good ones.
Yeah, pretty much.
The 2 out of the like 27.
It feels like there's 27.
Bro, you remember when I told you, I said, you know what? I've never watched the Hellraiser series. I think I'm going to give it a go. And you just said, LOL, they get bad.
Dude,
and then
yeah.
I watched one. Well, I watched one for years, and I finally got around to watching 2, and I was like, damn, two's like right on par with the first one. It's really good. And then I before watching 3, I didn't know anything about it. You said you didn't like it, and I read mixed reviews. Some people loved it, some people hate it. No offense, I don't know how anybody liked that movie. I stopped my Hellraiser quest there. I said, this is it. I said, because
you stopped it on one of the ones that people still consider to be good.
Yeah, and then I heard that it got much worse, and I'm like, if it's already this bad, like, I don't want to be here for this. Like, I'm good. I
don't want to be here when it goes to space or touches up on virtual reality. One of the titles that fucking kills me, bro, is it's called Hellraiser Deader.
I haven't seen that one because I've seen some ridiculous ones.
Deader.
Like Hell on Earth.
What the fuck? Did they make that word up? I've never heard of like anybody actually using that in a real, like, literal term. Like, yeah, well, you know, that person's dead, but that person deader. It sounds like something a redneck would say. Like, it doesn't sound like something that doesn't seem like a word, and that's actually the title of a Hellraiser movie.
I was not familiar with that one, and I thought I had heard all of them.
The title makes you kind of question it. But anyway, Sorry, Kelly. Yeah, your name was Kelly. Sorry, Kelly. Let me answer your question.
Hellraiser would not be appropriate for a 7 or 9 year old.
No. I would say the easiest answer to your question would be make them watch the new Jack Black Goosebumps movies. Those might do it, and also try The House with the Clock in Its Walls. I'm fucked up, but I say let them watch Antlers as well. It's a bit violent, but with a parent, it's fine. I think that'll scare them, and it won't do any real damage to them in regards to scaring them. It shouldn't traumatize them, and they won't find any cheese in that.
Friday the 13th, Part 6.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's
I
a
feel
good
like
one,
it's
dude.
everybody that
Halloween
and the original.
3. I mean, no, you got Tom Atkins doing some dicking.
Yeah.
Never mind. Tom Atkins fucks in that movie, so we can't.
Tom Atkins always gonna fuck.
All right, so hold on. Speaking of The House with the Clock in Its Walls, they should totally do a porn parody of that.
I knew you were gonna say it.
Like a massive glory hole sesh. Like the whole,
What the fuck?
Like the whole house, it just has holes. Stop! Let me give you the premise. Hold on. Like the house, right? It has all these fucking glory holes. It's like the house with the cock in its walls. You got to kind of work past the cocks to get upstairs. And even when you get the cock, even when you get upstairs and you're safe, you got cocks thumping on your wall. Hey, am I next?
Oh, Jesus Christ! I don't even know how I go back to finish answering this
I
question.
bet you Ava Adams would star in that. She'd be up for it.
He's on TikTok or whatever.
I don't know, man. I don't know. The house with the cock in its walls. Watch, somebody's going to take that idea now, and I'm going to be like, man, I could have been a rich man if I just had a mansion with 50 glory holes in the walls.
So, you got a lot of directing to do.
You got a lot of mopping to do.
Oh, I'm not involved in this.
You mop it up, dog.
Hell, I am. That's a Josh job.
Oh,
all right,
shit.
I think it is 100% time to move on to our movie discussion of Slapface.
All right, so before we talk about Slapface, I want to take a moment and be serious here. Before we get started, I just wanted to say something. Bear with me. So it's hard to track and find down the first film in which children were abused. I've tried. But thinking back on it, if you're a film guy and watch black and white movies, think back at how many movies had rude and abusive parents in them, right? It's natural to be used to being treated like an asshole. Abusive parents or siblings or boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever. It's ingrained in us to tolerate this abuse and excuse it. Some people are open about their dysfunction and others hide it and know it's something to be ashamed of but accept it for whatever reason. Abuse is ingrained in us from birth in some sort of another. Think about it. Everyone knows someone with, who's living in everyone knows someone who's living with some sort of abuse in their household. There we go. I got that out. I bet you listeners out there, I bet that you can count more people that you know who are from abusive households or relationships than you can people you know who have $100 to their name. I know I can. There's a lot of movies about fathers physically abusing and sexually abusing their children, but there aren't as many movies about fathers committing filicide as there are women. Filicide is what it's called when a parent murders their own child, not to be confused with prolicide, which is a term for someone else killing someone else's child, not their own. So anyway, men beat and molest kids in movies and women kill them, apparently. There's a ton of movies about mothers murdering their children. Just think about Nicole Kidman's the movie The Others from 2001, where the twist was that she had killed her kids and then committed suicide. Anyway, back to my point. Just think about dysfunctional families. My family was dysfunctional. My wife's was, as was my friends. A lot of my friends had dysfunctional families as well. We're all dysfunctional. No one is normal. So it only makes sense that dysfunction leaked its way into movies, right? Movies about child abuse are in the lifeblood of cinema. And you have movies like Flowers in the Attic and Casadaga, not Casablanca. Mommy Dearest, Sleepers, The Devil's Backbone, The Girl Next Door, the Finnish horror movie Hatching that I reviewed on Instagram, To Color Purple. My voice is doing that Vin Diesel thing again. Solo. That's another one. And one that really hits home for me is it's really hard to watch. One that I can relate to in a lot of ways is called This Boy's Life, starring Leo DiCap and Robert De Niro. And the thing is, John, I don't know how much acting De Niro had to do in this movie because he is a fucking asshole.
Yeah, I've heard things about De Niro.
Yeah, well, he plays an abusive stepfather, and he puts Leo through hell, and it's hard to watch. It really is. It breaks my heart. And a lot of people don't talk about this movie. It kind of fell off the radar after it landed in the 90s. I don't know. Anyway, Carrie is another one. Stephen King really had a way of always ingraining child abuse into his films, like Dolores Claiborne and that asshole dad in Silver Bullet who gets killed in the shed. Yeah. The one watching wrestling, like, bust his chops. His wrestling gets interrupted. I mean, I'd be upset too if my wrestling program was interrupted. You know what I mean? But that's besides the point. Sling Blade, Maniac Cop. I'm sorry, not Maniac Cop, Maniac. Psycho, The Babadook, and more recently Antlers, which touched up on child abuse, but also did the complete backflip of actually letting the monster be the fucking monster, right? A Wendigo. After Babadook, the monster is a person, or people now. We're the real monsters. We get it. Antlers brought us back to a real monster movie, and I appreciate the shit out of that. However, in the vein of the monster being a human and a metaphor, that all depends on how you, the viewer, interpret the ending of the film we're here to talk about today, Slapface. It's up to you to decide. Is this a monster movie, or is this all in this kid's head, right? It's not abusive parents, it's sibling bullying. It's an older brother burdened by the task of raising his fucked up younger brother. Slapface was a short film that Jeremiah Kipp made in 2018. Jeremiah made a lot of short films starting when he was a young adult. And between making short films, he directed a few episodes of a TV show called In Fear. He didn't make a feature film until The Sadist in 2015, starring Tom Savini. Once presented the opportunity to turn his short film Slapface into a feature film, Jeremiah jumped on it, and he kicked its ass. I think the people who grew up in broken homes will feel closer to this movie than those that didn't, but anyone and everyone watching understands and sympathizes. The film stars Mike Manning from MTV's Teen Wolf, and the older brother Tom the film stars Mike Manning from MTV's Teen Wolf as the older brother Tom, and August Maturo, he was in The Nun, and he plays Lucas. Watch Slapface, The Nun sucked, and they're doing another one for some reason. Okay, John, anyway, take us through the movie.
Yeah, Slapface, like you said, was a feature-length adaptation of the 2017 short film of the same name, and debuted in festivals in 2021. And Lucas, he's a loner kid. He lives with his brother Tom, played by Mike Manning, and August Maturo, like you said, played Lucas. Their mother had previously died, and they live in a rundown home. Tom tries to be the adult figure Lucas needs at times, but he's still growing himself. For example, the title of the film, Slapface, I don't think that's the best way to go about discipline. I mean, that's just me.
No, you're right.
And Lucas, he likes to play in the woods by his house, and the only interaction he really has with anyone else is a group of female bullies. Sisters Donna and Rose, played by Bianca, and I'm going to mess this up, Chiara D'Ambrosia, respectively. And the third bully, Mariah, is played by Mirabelle Lee. And it's kind of a weird dynamic because when Lucas isn't there, the two sisters bully Mariah. When Mariah's with Lucas by himself, they're kind of like boyfriend-girlfriend. But then when Mariah's with the girls, then she joins in with bullying Lucas.
Yeah, totally.
And one day in the woods, Lucas comes across a witch played by Lucas Hassel. The two form a very strange friendship. And Lucas starts to withdraw from his interactions with everyone else and just hangs with his best pal, the witch.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good way of summing it up. Hangs with his best pal, the witch.
And they kind of, the witch kind of offers protection to Lucas, and they just kind of offer friendship to each other.
Yeah, and I like how she has like toys on her belt. You notice that? Yeah. You notice that she like she's so desperate for her friend that she has toys on her belt to like bait kids in. Almost like if this were a dude, that'd be a totally different movie.
Yeah, probably. But I also really like the design of the witch as well.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. Creepy, very, very creepy.
It's not something I've seen before. Like I've never seen a witch that looks like that.
I would
Like
agree.
very top heavy and then kind of like wispy at the bottom.
Kind of had like reminded me of Lord of the Rings almost.
Yeah.
Almost, you know.
But it's yeah. I don't want to go too much further into the story. I feel like that's a good cutoff point. But it's definitely something you need to check out. It's on Shudder. It's won awards. It's a very heavy movie once you finish it. And it doesn't feel that way till you get till it feels heavy, but like the last 15 minutes, like after that ends, it sits with you.
That's I completely agree with you. That's one of those ones that you kind of still think about it after it ended. Definitely. All right, so I'm going to ask you, I kind of said it before this, so I'm going to ask you, you didn't spoil anything, you know, like about like anything that happens in the film, but
we're getting better with that.
Do you think the witch was real or no?
No.
Agreed. That's 100% my take. I don't believe the witch was real for a second.
If the witch was real, tell me it wouldn't be badass to just like have like witch. It's like your friend. Nobody's fucking with you.
No, I know, but yeah, I just when posed with the do I believe it was real? No, I don't. I think it was a big metaphor, and that's okay. But I gotta say though, to backtrack, it did hurt seeing Lucas get Amber Hearded, man.
Yeah.
A couple of Amber Heards on him,
Ugh.
just unnecessary.
Lucas had it rough.
You know, but I can relate to this movie because you know. I don't think you had a real dysfunctional house growing up.
No.
Yeah, you're lucky.
I had what they call the like normal household. I mean, we were lower middle class, but like nobody's calling the cops at night.
Yeah, that's nice. It's peaceful. But I can relate to this movie because growing up, you know, my dad was an absentee father, and you know what you saw of him usually wasn't good. And my mother developed manic depression, now known as bipolar disorder, and she didn't have the wherewithal to raise me. You know, it was my older sister, who's my senior by 7 years, who cooked my meals, made my lunch, played with me, etc. You know, our relationship wasn't abusive like Tom and Lucas's, but we did play a game where, you know, we would hold each other's hands. You know that Arnold and Carl Weathers muscle handshake from Predator? Yeah, we would hold each other's hands like that.
The template for many a meme.
Yes. Well, we would hold our hands like that, and we would smack the back of each other's hand to see who would quit first from the pain. And I swear to God, and, you know, that's the shit that we did in my house when mom and dad were away. You know, mom was in bed depressed, and dad was downstairs not caring what we were doing as long as his TV program wasn't interrupted. You know, so And I know that, you know, my sister was burdened by me. You know, I know that she tried not to show it. I saw the look of embarrassment and dread on her face when she told her friend I had to tag along because she was stuck watching me, you know, and being older now, like thinking that I get it, you know, and, you know, her friends would have to stop and take me to Toys R Us and stuff instead of them being able to chase boys like they should have been doing, you know, so yeah, I totally get this movie and relate to this movie in a lot of ways. And luckily I didn't turn into a metaphoric monster and give in to my sinister urges like Lucas did here, which brings me to my next topic. Yeah, I choose to believe that it's in Luke's head, and that's perfectly okay. I give this movie a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, 9 sounds good. It's a rookie score because I didn't put a decimal in it, but
yeah, what's up, dude? It's like a 9.2 or a 9.4.
I mean, I can't disagree. Like, I feel like 9's a solid score. Well, I think now it's time to get into Burn and Learn, segment of our show where we fill you in some cool behind-the-scenes facts about the movie we're discussing, and today that's Slapface.
Oh.
Burn and learn.
All right, we're going to thank Director Jeremiah Kipp for this segment today because he sent us over some awesome facts that are exclusive to this podcast. So, ears open. Okay. The executive producer, Shintaro Shimusawa, had a well-known cameo in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 as the guy with the cell phone who tells Leatherface, quote, "Try anything and you're canceled, bro." End
Try
quote.
anything and you're canceled, bro. Like, that was like, a lot of people didn't like that line because they said it was too cheesy, but I thought it was hilarious.
I figured that was one of the ones that you liked. Yeah,
That's a good one.
Yeah.
The opening scene of the film was discovered in the editing room. Originally, we didn't see the brothers hitting each other until 10 minutes into the film. But producer Mike Manning made the suggestion, saying it would make the audience immediately feel like violence could erupt in this movie at any time without any preamble or explanation. We tried his idea out, and chills immediately went down all of our spines. I feel like when I saw that, I was just like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah,
like,
man.
Like, it's one of those times where you're like, you jump into a movie and you're like, I'm lost. And you're like, I just started it. Of course I'm lost, but like, I feel like I'm extra lost. Like, what the hell's going on? I can't catch my bearings on anything.
Definitely. I could totally understand you. All right, well, the sound designer, Michael Odmark, created multiple layers of audio for the monster, ranging from insect sounds to distorted children and older people, beastly animals, dust settling, creaking ship sounds, and all built atop a baseline audio from our actor Lucas Hassel himself. Odmark, pronounced Odmark, okay, that's Odmark, I've been saying Odmark the whole time, is the unsung hero of the project.
We literally shot the abandoned haunted Wakefield house interiors on Halloween. It wasn't an intentional in-joke that was the day that worked best during our shooting schedule.
Mike Manning, who plays Tom, the older brother, lived on the set during the making of the film.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right? And slept in Tom's bedroom, drank his morning coffee from the prop coffee maker in the kitchen, and kept his clothes in Tom's closet. He loved having access to the character's home every day before and after we wrapped filming every day.
Ugh, I don't think I'd want to stay in that house.
Yeah, totally, right?
But we appreciate his commitment on that one. Dan Hedaya, who plays Sheriff John Thurston, was having trouble pronouncing the name of the street where he catches the little boy early in the movie and asked if we could change it. So we call it North Lane instead named after the street I grew up. When I told Dan the change, it felt personalized for him in a specific way, and he said, "Beautiful, that's what we should do."
All right, now let's get on to talking to the director himself, our guest today, Jeremiah Kipp. Our guest today is the writer and director of the film we're discussing, Slapface. He's also known for his work on Black Wake, Mastermind, and The Sadist, starring makeup effects guru Tom Savini. Welcome, Jeremiah Kipp. Thank you for being on High on Horror.
Hey, it's my pleasure to be here, man.
Awesome to have you.
Yeah, we appreciate it. You've been around for a while, so it's great. It's going to be great to speak with you. Before we start, though, we always like to ask our guests, you're on High on Horror, so are you pro-cannabis? Do you indulge?
Yeah, I smoked some weed last night while watching The Handmaid's Tale, which was a pretty interesting combination.
Nice. That's a good show, actually. My wife and I watched that. How often do you smoke?
Well, actually, lately I've been doing more more mushrooms and stuff like that. I've been into taking trips and doing hallucinogens more than smoking weed. But the most recent times that I smoked weed regularly was making my second and third feature. So Teresa and Allison and Black Wake, I pretty much smoked weed every night after wrapping production on those movies. But then I had a spell where I got super paranoid smoking weed, and I was like, well, let me just take a break from this and try some other drugs that I hadn't used in a really long time. I hadn't done mushrooms since I was 18, and I'm in my 40s now. So more recently, I've been interested in having that kind of an experience. But smoking weed the other night and watching The Handmaid's Tale was a lot of fun. I work in the arts, and a lot of my collaborators and colleagues are recreational users as well. So I don't know. I think that there's been a long history of the creative process and the arts and drug use. I mean, like with weed, a lot of the time it's like to help relax, and and I find that like whenever I'm doing the work that I love, which is in horror films, often in deeply disturbing movies, uh, I've always found it best for the actors and the crew to be not in a high stress environment. I think everybody does their best work and is open to delving the most deep when they're relaxed. Uh, so when I was, at the peak of my time smoking weed, which was my, essentially being dazed and confused in high school, much like the film, and working on a couple of the movies that I've made, I found it to be just a part of the process, and enjoyable, and just something that enables me to cut through some of the stress levels and do the work that I really want to do. That involves being able to not freak out about disturbing stuff.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the artistic process. Even just with the podcast, with writing, sometimes you just spoke and you're like, oh, this makes sense to do this and this, and like, why didn't I think of this before?
I
now
is a creative enabling tool.
Is smoking your favorite way to consume? Do you like edibles?
No, I prefer edibles. Lately, that's been more the way. I mean, when I was working on my earlier features, it was always through smoking, but more recently, like edibles have been my preferred method.
But we feel like we've been hearing that a lot lately, and usually what we hear is like you kind of know exactly what dosage you're getting, so you kind of know what you're getting into.
Also, the time frame with the drugs that I've been doing lately, because you're anticipating an experience that will take several hours, so you're creating an environment where you're setting like a large block of time aside to open yourself up to whatever's going to happen. And I think that's great. I mean, like those experiences, the thing that's great about the trips that I've been on recently is that I can actively remember them. And when I was smoking a lot of weed, I would just have a hard time remembering things. Whereas like the other drugs that I've been using, I can access memory very easily.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like I can kind of relate. There are some times where I've smoked that I'm like, I don't remember what happened.
Yeah.
Now, and like you said, you're a fan of the horror genre. What attracted you to the genre?
Well, I grew up with my grandparents in rural Rhode Island, and they were very lenient about the movies that I would watch. And watching films like Dawn of the Dead and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the early David Cronenberg movies, I didn't draw any distinction between those horror films and like Grimm's fairy tales and like children's stories that involve like a witch or a monster or something like that. So I always found horror films to be a source of great joy and relaxation and wild imagination. Like when I watched Dawn of the Dead, I found it exciting, the possibility of living in a shopping mall. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre, while I found it very scary, like I immediately made a connection with Hansel and Gretel, like being starving children lost in the woods. They find a gingerbread house and the witch is trying to cook them, eat them, which is no different than what like Leatherface's family is intending to do. Also,
that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
And so, so the joy that I derived from fairy tales and the joy that I derived from movies like the ones I mentioned, but and the David Cronenberg stuff, like just felt so wildly imaginative. Like a gun is growing out of James Wood's hand in Videodrome, and people's heads are exploding.
Right.
Oh, we love Videodrome.
Yeah. I just found that I was not deeply disturbed by those films. I felt like they were reality plus, and I felt like they were taking our basic human wants and needs and just stretching them into something beyond. So like when you're watching The Fly, it's a movie that had a profound effect on me because it would be very hard to watch a movie about someone dying of AIDS or dying of cancer. But like watching Jeff Goldblum turn into a giant fly, you can have the emotional cathartic reaction to it where you feel all the sadness of watching someone you love dying. But you also feel that wonder of like watching him turn into this biological thing that is other. And at the ending of that movie, I remember crying and crying, and really being terribly moved by the movie. And that sadness, though, felt profound. Like I didn't feel depression. I felt this kind of like large reaction of of tragedy, and that kind of like later
Right.
on,
Yeah.
like reading what people were saying about the Greek tragedies and like the terrible things that happen at the end of those, or plays like Hamlet and stuff. I felt those. The earliest time I ever felt that feeling was watching David Cronenberg's The Fly. So I connected with horror films in that way, in a very emotional way, when I was younger.
That makes a lot of sense. And, it's funny that you mentioned The Fly, because the ending of The Fly and the ending of Terminator 2 had a huge impact on me
Mm,
growing up, because they both devastated me. But one was like,
yeah,
the hero dies, and one was the bad guy dies. And that was what was intriguing to me. And that's what I liked about horror, was I was like, horror can kind of put that spin on things. It's very metaphoric, where the bad guy, you can sympathize with them the same way you would for the good guy.
that's right. When I love the film Candyman from 1992, and I've like read a lot of interviews and listened to a lot of stuff with Bernard Rose talking about it, the writer director. And
Right.
I think he had some pushback from either the studio or the producers saying, "Do you think the audience will think it's racist that Candyman is black?" And Bernard Rose said, "I think that, and you roll with me on this. I know it's counterintuitive, but everybody will love Candyman. Everybody will completely embrace that character." And I know it feels weird because he's the monster in that movie, but everyone will love him, despite the fact that he kills a dog, despite the fact that he steals a
Yeah.
little baby. Everybody will be attracted to Candyman and they'll either want to be him, or they'll want to know him, or they'll identify with the feelings that Helen has of feeling seduced by him, or they'll just or they'll be drawn to him like a magnet, which are a lot of the powerful feelings of Candyman, which is like also a wonderful film in terms of representation. Uh, all audiences have just revered Tony Todd's great performance as Candyman. They speak about him the same way they did at one time about Bela Lugosi's Dracula and Boris Karloff's Frankenstein. It's one of the great monster performances.
Yeah, that's I completely agree with you. And there's a reason why I think Candyman hasn't been rebooted, or there's been a bunch of sequels. I think it was kind of like,
Mm,
well, if nobody's watching anymore, we're just gonna not make them, because nobody would watch them without Tony Todd. They didn't even try to recast him like they did with Pinhead. It
right,
was just nope, don't even try
right.
it. Um, listen, man, you have a lot of directing credits under your name. You've been manning a camera for what, over 20 years? I mean, like, so I want to ask
Yeah.
you, what do you get out of filmmaking?
Well, it's the great passion of my life. When I was little, when I was watching all those horror films that we were talking about before, uh, I grew up like deep in the woods, so I was a bit of a lonely child, and like art was a great source of inspiration for me. So reading comic books and reading books, and watching movies were all wonderful. Um, I was also like a child actor in like local theater and stuff like that. But once my grandparents got a VHS camcorder, it combined all the things that I loved. It combined the stories from books. It combined the acting from appearing in plays. I liked to draw a lot, so I had the visual medium going for it. All the things that I found comforting could be used in the form of movies. It combined all the different art forms in a way that spoke to me, and it felt like a way to communicate my feelings with other people from a place of being alone. And once you start making horror movies, you realize there are a lot of like-minded weirdos out there who are also interested in the same things. Uh, and when I was 12 to 17, I made all these movies with my friends. I would always say, bring your army jackets. We're doing a war movie in the woods, or wear clothes that you're not afraid to get ripped up. You're going to be zombies attacking the house. And I must have made hundreds of movies with my friends. And the only school that I applied to was New York University, the film school. But I cut a little reel together of the hundreds of hours of crappy movies that I'd made, submitted that with my grades and so on, and I went to film school. And so I moved to New York from rural Rhode Island, and that was a bit of a culture shock, moving to the place that I still live now, which is like the big city, the Big Apple. Uh, but I was going to film school, and I was watching all these cool films from people like Werner Herzog and Fellini and all these folks that whose movies I'd never seen. In New York, I had access to all these art house theaters and stuff that I'd never been able to get to before. But even movies like, Abel Ferrara's King of New York, the great film with Christopher Walken, like I saw that on VHS, but I'd read about it in the Village Voice, and I knew that New York was a place where I'd have access to more movies like that. Or you could meet Abel Ferrara in New York, which I did eventually. We drank Colt 45s in the Chelsea Hotel, and I interviewed him for Filmmaker magazine. And let me tell you,
That's
that was
awesome.
a pretty wild trip. He's an interesting character. His girlfriend at the time was there, and he was getting really annoyed because he felt like she was disrupting the interview. So he asked her to stand in the corner and facing the wall. They were both pretty high. So she stands in the corner and faces the wall for a while, like the Blair Witch Project or something. But then she starts reading passages from the Bible, and he's like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do with my films. And I was like, what an amazing experience. Only in New York can you get to experience like this weirdo heroin, filled Colonel Kurtz of a filmmaker. And what a wild ass interview that was. It was quite a time. I really like Abel Ferrara a lot. I actually think he's a really great artist and a really talented guy. And he's managed to work through some of his problems with substance abuse and like continued to make really interesting work.
Yeah, I agree. I'm an Abel Ferrara fan myself. But I wanted to ask you, you had mentioned that, you were making movies, with your friends when you were a kid. Define kid.
Yeah.
How young were you when you knew you wanted to be a movie maker?
12. Yeah. Like when I was 12, once we started making these movies, I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I'm determined this will be my life, and, you don't get a lot of support, like saying, I want to be a film director, when, it's like, well, why can't you choose a career where there's a little bit more stability? Fortunately, my grandfather was a pretty open-minded guy, and he grew up extremely poor, not unlike the characters in Slapface. And he was bound and determined for me to do whatever I wanted to do in my life. And if that was film directing, he was going to move heaven and earth to make it possible. I also had a very excellent art teacher named Mrs. Callahan, who was really tough on me in art class. But she knew that like the scholarships and grants that I might be able to get wouldn't be for film. But if I submitted my films for art grants, then that would help pay my way through like a very expensive education at New York University. So she and my grandfather and several other people like worked really hard to try to get me out of my limited means and achieve a dream, which was to get out of essentially poverty and like move to the city and do the things that I wanted to do. So 12 years old is when I really knew what I wanted to do. 17, I was like, I'm going there. And 17, 18, I was in film school, like doing it. And the hardest part of my life actually was when I just finished film school. I was 21 years old, and you get out of film school, and you're like, I'm going to make it my feature. But I didn't have any resources, I didn't have any money, I didn't know anybody, and I couldn't make my first feature. But what I did do was I worked for a nonprofit filmmaker organization called the Independent Feature Project. And one of the interns there like knew that I wanted to make movies. And he's like, hey, why don't you join our little club? We call ourselves the Sunday Club. We get together every Sunday, we make a movie, and then we have brunch. How's that sound? I was like, that sounds great. So then I made a bunch of other shitty films with those guys, as part of a film collective where like we had a high camera and some editing software. We gradually moved to a DSLR. And then I watched one of my friends in that group move on and like spend $30,000 on essentially her short film on 16 millimeter that did film festivals and so on. And the first short that I did that I thought was any good was in 2003. And it was a movie called The Christmas Party. It was about a little boy who was dropped off at a Christmas party, the kind that wants everyone else to be Christian too. And that kind of had an Invasion of the Body Snatchers vibe. It was not a horror movie per se, but it was scary because like cool. This kid was dropped off at this event and the audience didn't know what was going to happen. And it played at film festivals for like 3 years. And it played at some horror film festivals where like they said, yeah, this is a horror film. It's scary. But in New England, they treated it as social realism. When we screened it in France, they thought it was a satire of America. But I knew that we'd done something that spoke to people. It played at some Christian film festivals where they interpreted it as a kid who was almost saved. That really, I felt like I'd achieved something where anytime you put that movie in front of an audience, the Q&A would spark debate. It happened to come out at a time right after The Passion of the Christ had come out, the Mel Gibson movie.
Yeah.
So there was a wavelength the audiences were on where like they aggressively wanted to talk about this stuff. And the only mistake I made was I did not have a feature-length script tucked under my arm when that movie was out there. I was doing the festival thing, and producers were like, you got a feature? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to write one. It took me 3 years to write one. And then by the time I was like, hey, I got a feature, like all those money sources had dried up. And I learned really the hard way that like, if you're doing the film festival thing, you need to be ready when opportunity calls. And I said, never again will I allow this to happen. I will always have a feature-length script tucked under my arm, and I'll be ready for it the next time it happens. And just jumping ahead to Slapface, it's I was trying to get that feature-length script made for years and years and years. It was really hard to get people to understand what I was trying to do with it because movies like Hereditary hadn't come out yet, and The Witch hadn't come out yet. So the director of photography, Dominic Savilli, who's been my friend for many, many years, he said, why don't we do a short film? Like I'd done many times before. I'd done like many, many short films and I think 4 or 5 features by that point. We made an 8-minute short. And I said to myself, well, if I never make the feature, I will at least have told this version of the story, which, in the 8 minutes included the game of Slapface that is in the movie and the monster that is in the movie and the little boy. And for 3 years, that movie did the film festival thing, and it did well, and I got good notices. And every Q&A, I would say, this is a proof of concept for a feature. And then when the producers who were looking for a dysfunctional family drama with a monster in it came and said, do you have a script? Do you have a feature-length version of this? Do you have a pitch deck? I was like, yes, I do. And I sent them the short, the pitch deck, and the feature. And like that's what enabled Slapface to exist, was remembering back in 2003, 2004, 2005 that I kind of blew it when the opportunity was presented to me the first time. So that when the opportunity circled around again, I knew that I would be ready for it. But Slapface is also not my first feature. Like my first feature was The Sadist. We shot it in 2010, and it was a Killer in the Woods movie. These producers had seen a short film that I made and thought that I was talented, and they said, let's do this movie together. And then Tom Savini came on board and was our Killer in the Woods. And that was my first time working with somebody who was a hero of mine when I was younger. Watching Dawn of the Dead, you remember him as the guy wielding the machete. And From Dusk Till Dawn, of course, as Sex Machine and so many other great George Romero movies and so on. Tom Savini is a hero to all of us in the horror world.
He's the man.
And I remembered he was our Killer in the Woods. He was the guy that was like killing the teenagers basically in that film. Tom has a terrible reputation from the convention circuit of not suffering fools gladly. And I've heard many people say that he's a very difficult, ornery personality. So Dominic, who shot Slapface and shot my first feature, The Sadist, we decided before Tom showed up, we were going to shoot for 2 weeks. And then we edited together everything we'd shot so far. And then Tom Savini shows up on our set and is prepared to direct the movie for us. He shows up and is like, put the camera here. I'm going to go over here. This other actor is going to do this. And I'm like, that sounds great, Tom. Why don't you go get through hair and makeup? And before you do, watch this 2-minute reel that we've cut together of what we shot so far. And he watched it and he was like, oh, okay, great. I'm going to go get ready. And from then on, he was nothing but supportive and encouraging and there for the movie and trying to help us. And I saw that if he did not trust you, he would drive over you like a Panzer tank. But if you earned his trust, then he would do anything for you because he's a crew guy. He's a special effects artist. He works behind the scenes. And he literally was like, hey, when the truck hits me, can I do my own stunt? We had a stunt man standing by, and we're like, Tom, you're 65 years old. I don't know about this truck hitting you. And he said, no, let me show you how we can do it so that it will look like I will actually be jumping on the truck and I will make it look like it's hitting me and, all this stunt stuff. And I was like, Tom, if you're crazy enough to do that, then I'm crazy enough to shoot it. And sure enough, he did the stunts and it was brilliant. And it was so much better having Tom Savini be the guy on the hood of the truck. that gets pinned to a wall and all this other stuff. So that wound up being, I learned a lot from that experience. Like, I think the number one thing I learned from Tom Savini was that I never treated Tom like he was my idol. I never talked to him about Friday the 13th or Dawn of the Dead or any of that. I just treated him like Tom, who was an actor in our film, who was there to do his job, and I was there to do my job, and our points would meet in that way. And it wound up being really great. And I applied that to every other person who's an experienced actor and the name talent that gets the money or whatever. I never was interested in treating them like they were celebrity.
Right.
I was always interested in treating them like a craftsperson and a colleague, and that we're all making this together. And you do the same work that I do. You just get there faster because you're more experienced. And that's the only difference between an older, experienced name talent person and like the person who's just done a couple features or whatever.
Well, that's good that you can, separate, just treating people like companions instead of acting as if, or as peers rather, instead of acting as if, like they're celebrity, because a lot of times that's what kind of gives celebrities big heads is I'm used to being treated a certain way. So you kind of keep them on a grounded level. And also you don't like come off as like this fan that's just eager to have them in your movie. You're like, I am a fan, but I'm professional.
Yeah, exactly. I think the definition of like professional is showing up and doing the work, showing up and doing the work to the best of your ability, showing up and doing the work with great passion, and, if you show up and do the work with great passion, like that light gets passed on, it's like your passion is infectious and other people will be passionate too. So Tom, wanted to give a big speech on his last day. And I was a little bit like, man, I don't know if we want to take we could be shooting for that 10 minutes. Do you want to give a speech? He's like, no, I think it'll be good. And he, gave the speech basically saying, you guys are reminding me what it's all about. Like, low budget movies, you get to be really creative and you're not sitting around waiting in your trailer. You're there with your boots on the ground, like making work. And this is why I got into this in the first place. So it was one of those moments where I was really glad that we let Tom talk because he reminded us what it was all about and what he cared about and what he was passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. It had to be an honor to work with someone like Savini. I wanted to go back and ask you, let's go back about the short film of Slapface. I understand now, I deliberately didn't read articles because sometimes I read articles and prior interviews before I interview someone that way I can I don't want to ask questions that are redundant and things like that. But I heard, and I didn't want to spoil it for myself, that Slapface was like important to you. And I don't know why, so I'm going to ask you how it was important to you. And also, what's the origin of the game Slapface? Like, how did you come up with the game of people, of the brothers just smacking each other in the face as a way to, I guess, express their anger or whatever, like just emotion?
Well, I mean, I can answer both those questions at once. So the film is personal, but it's not autobiographical. Like in many ways, it's more based on the life of my grandfather, Tom, who I named the older brother after in the film. Tom, like in real life, my grandfather's dad played Slapface with him. So his dad was an orphan who learned to play Slapface in the orphanage, and then he would play that game with my grandfather. And that game was, if you are bad, which they often were because they were a lower income family and you're bored and you're, kind of committing crimes as a way to pass the time. If you are bad, then I will hit you and then you'll hit me back just as hard. And the idea behind that game is that if you are hitting me, then you are making me feel the pain also, so we're having a shared experience in this violence. I remember my grandfather telling me about that. And I remember even in a very early age putting that in counterpoint to the horror films that I was watching. And I was like, well, this is way worse than, the horror films that give me so much joy, because this is abuse. This is the abuse of a child. This cannot stand. And I didn't really get the idea to take my granddad's story, put it into a movie until I'd reread Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which is a novel that I really adore. And I got to the middle of the book where there's an extraordinary section where the monster is outside of a farmhouse, like kind of leaving firewood and like taking care of the people who live there and imagining the lives of the people inside. And I said, wouldn't that make a cool movie if it were all about that, like a monster outside imagining the family? And I said, well, who would the family be? And I started like stealing stuff from the stories that my granddad had told me about his childhood. So Slapface was something that I pulled into it. And that my grandfather, after school, would be chased through the woods by 3 female bullies who would throw rocks at him. But one of them would always circle back around and say, I'm your secret girlfriend. Kiss me, but don't tell anyone or we'll beat you worse. So I was like, well, that's going in the movie too. Like all that real life stuff will be the family that the monster is watching. And then before I knew it, it wasn't really an adaptation of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein anymore. And I said, well, what if the monster were not Victor Frankenstein's creature? What if it were the proverbial witch from Grimm's fairy tales? So it could still have that like sort of 10-foot tall Frankenstein's monster quality. But what if on top of that 10-foot tall monster, you put the gingerbread witch's head on top of it? What a weird dysmorphic effect that would be of like having an elongated creature with a witch face, because we're so used to that like witch being small, like with the pot and so on. And I thought that was really creepy and dysmorphic and fascinating. And the more I thought about the witch, the more I wanted to imagine her in 3 dimensions and say, well, what if she were a character with her own wants and desires and needs? If I'm approaching the family with a sense of social realism, what if I approached the witch the same way and said, like, what does the witch care about? What does the witch want? What does the witch long for? What does the witch yearn for? And there are precedents for that in the horror genre as well. Frankenstein's creature has all those wants that we all have. Roy Batty in Blade Runner, which is not a horror film, wants to live and wants to love and wants to feel things. And is that more human than human thing. Candyman from 1992 wants a legacy and wants to be loved and wants to be remembered. So I was like, let me humanize the needs of this monster. And then that became the story. It's like we're going to create the monster and the child story, almost like Disney's Fox and the Hound, in counterpoint to the story of this family, living in post-tragic trauma, where their parents are gone, as is the case in so many children's stories where the parents are wiped out. And now it's this older brother and this younger brother that have to fend for themselves, thrown into an adult world that is beyond their means. And then you throw a monster into that, and now you've got brutal social realism in counterpoint to the elements of the fantastic that are in the horror movie. And I wanted the movie to be the communication between those two things and how they bounce off of each other in a powerful way for me.
Okay, understood. That was a great answer. That was a really good answer, man. I wanted to say, but I noticed something during the film, and that's that Tom tries to make Lucas reflect him. Tom has a breakup with his girlfriend, so instead of telling Lucas to mend his problem with his girlfriend, he tells him to let her go. Was it purposeful that you made them kind of like go through the same things together?
Yeah, all of these characters are like essentially trying to mirror stuff that they've seen already. So Tom is trying to be his dad. The younger couple is trying to copy the older couple. The monster in many ways is trying to copy the human characters. Like as the monster character learns about the humans, you see the Virago witch attempting to play Slapface, and you see one of the characters points a gun at the witch, and the witch like mimics the gesture of cocking and pointing a gun at them. So there's a constant watching how other people behave and then attempting to mirror it as a way of having that experience. That happens throughout the entire movie, and it's not an accident that you saw that.
Okay. Well, we were speaking about the witch a minute ago, and I wanted to ask you, was the witch's look inspired by anything? Because when I was watching this movie with my wife pointed out, she said, ask him if the witch was inspired by Snow White, because it kind of looks like a twisted version of the Snow White witch to me.
Yeah, like not. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I specifically thought of Snow White, but like Snow White was drawing from the same inspiration that I was, which is that classical hook-nosed witch that we know from Grimm's fairy tales, and they transplanted that witch into Snow White. And I took that same idea and like applied it to the hulking monster that I wanted to have. So not Snow White specifically, but Snow White and I were drawing from the same inspiration of a different source.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, there's definitely the witch is creepy looking, and it's one of those things where even though it's playing the part of being a friend, it's definitely one of those things where they're watching the movie. I'm kind of on the edge of my seat. Like, can I really trust this thing? I don't know. So like, it's funny to have something that hideous be portrayed in kind of like an innocent light, like to be nice to a child because you're naturally drawn to just be like, get away from that thing.
Yeah, that to me was the conflict of the movie. It's like when we introduce the monster, everybody expects the monster to attack and destroy, which the monster does at several points in the movie. But when the monster snatches up the boy the very first time, she takes the boy to see this beautiful sunset. And like
Yeah,
it's one of those things where the monster is a complex character. The monster admires beauty, and also when she feels like she needs to defend the boy, will attack with great murderous violence. So I think both can be true. The monster, just because someone is a monster does not mean they cannot love, and just because someone is a monster does not mean they cannot appreciate beautiful things. I always I love the films of George Miller, uh, and I was so inspired when he said during the press tour for Mad Max Fury Road, just because we're in the wasteland doesn't mean we can't appreciate beautiful things. And the ornate intricacy of like the world that Miller created and the love that the characters have for designing the looks for themselves and their vehicles for themselves is truly felt. I thought Miller said it perfectly. Uh, a monster can have poetry in their heart and also be a dangerous, murderous, frightened beast.
absolutely. And Mad Max Fury Road, man, what a fucking movie. I love that movie.
I love it too. George Miller is a great source of. Yeah, I think he's a genius. Like I look to him. I think he's a master of visual storytelling, and I not to say that there aren't films with great dialogue in them, but like the more that I can tell the story through pictures and images, the happier I am. I think is the strength of the medium, and Fury Road does that perfectly. I mean, you could turn the sound off, and you'd be missing a great sensory experience by doing that, but you would be able to follow that story perfectly and completely. And like I just rewatched Halloween 3: Season of the Witch recently, and the first like 8 or 9 minutes, there's no dialogue in that movie either. That is like Tommy Lee Wallace drawing from John Carpenter and doing purely visual storytelling. Like the pictures are telling you everything. You're immediately pulled into the narrative of that movie. And maybe I was thinking of maybe Halloween 3 was also on the brain because I just listened to your interview with wonderful filmmaker Jacob Gentry for Broadcast Signal Intrusion, because I should also say that Tom Atkins is my favorite actor as well. It's I'm a big Halloween 3 fan, and I should also add that like the masks in that movie, like there's the pumpkin face and the witch face and the ghost face, but like when those faces start melting and all the insects are pouring out of them, the melted mask face was also something that I think was on the brain a little bit when. It's like when we saw the pumpkin face melt in Halloween 3, but if the witch face had gotten distorted and melty and like a little trippy and beyond, like maybe that could be something that the witch and Slapface could look like. So I mean, that could just be my passion for Halloween 3 being a great underappreciated. Well, maybe not anymore. I think people have come around and seen it as a wonderful movie.
It's
But
finally getting its
the
due.
witch face in Halloween 3 might have inspired a little bit.
Yeah, I can totally see that now that you mentioned that the nose on your witch and everything. I can totally see how it could be like the Halloween mask, just a little like tightened up and droopy. Totally get that. Um, Another thing that I wanted to bring up to you actually that I had made a note of was that you made the girls in this movie the bullies, and you had said that you had made them. It was
Yes.
the three girls are the bullies. It's not male bullies. It's girls. And I was wondering. Now you had already said that your grandfather was bullied by three girls, so it makes sense now. But my question was, I thought that maybe you were either trying to say that girls are bullies too, or you were trying to express how weak Lucas was by showing, hey, he gets bullied by girls.
No, I wasn't trying to say that Lucas was weak by being bullied by girls. It's like I think that the the stuff that Lucas has to go through in the movie requires enormous strength and a rich inner life. But the girls can be bullies too. You know, it's like I feel like we can explore that as much as we can explore anything else, you know. And I also thought that the actors who played the bullies in the film were really excited about the possibility of doing it because, uh, you know, teenagers their age are rarely asked to do something that they recognize as a fundamental truth from like being in. They're all high school age kids, and they all have to some degree or another experienced bullying. And by playing the bully, they can represent something that they've had to deal with. The twins, Bianca and Chiara D'Ambrosio, they're like these Disney actors, but like they're very against bullying, which is how they met Mike Manning, the producer of our film. They all met at something called Boo for Bullying. And they're very passionately against bullying. And they thought that by representing a thing truthfully that they have experienced, they could shed some light on it and an insight on it that is not often represented. And Mirabelle Lee, who plays Mariah, was drawn in by the complexity of that character because it's not just that she's bullying, it's that she wants to be accepted by a community, and she feels like she in a way has to lead a double life of like, you know, being Lucas's secret girlfriend, but not at the expense of the status that she has of being friends with the essentially alpha bullies. And like, you know, carrying that level of complexity was something that Mirabelle Lee was excited about doing, and of course was more than capable of handling. We auditioned hundreds of actors to play Mariah, and once we saw her, we knew she was the one. Like, we knew that she was the right actor for that part. So the bullying spoke to them, not because they are bullies themselves, but because they wanted to represent a thing that they had experienced themselves and felt like they could share it in a movie.
Okay, understood. Yeah, either way, it was you don't see female bullies in movies much, so that was interesting to see. Um, on IMDb, it says that the monster played by Lucas Hassel, who played the monster in the short as well, is now known as the Virago Witch. Virago meaning a domineering, violent, or bad-tempered woman. Is this true? Is this what we're calling the witch?
Yeah, in the film they call her that, you know.
I missed that. I've seen the movie twice, and
yeah,
I
the
missed
credits
that.
would call her the monster, you know, and I always sort of felt that was fair, you know. I mean, part of it could just be that like John Carpenter called Michael Myers the Shape, and I felt that was more accurate, you know. Like I was like, well, that kind of is what that is. And like for the Virago Witch, I always felt like that was a name that somebody had imposed on the creature, not that the creature had created for herself, you know. So I was like, that's what people call her, but that's not necessarily who she is.
Okay, that makes total sense. Okay, I like that. Well, I just wanted to say that you're obviously a horror fan. You know your stuff. This movie to me was like a more poignant, deeper, twisted version of Let the Right One In. It was, it's a badass witch instead of a vampire. You have a bullied kid who finds a supernatural companion that stands up for him. Was Let the Right One In the back of your mind at all when you were planning or writing Slapface?
Yeah, well, I love that film director. I loved Let the Right One In, and I loved Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which is another movie that guy made. I just think he's a very sensitive filmmaker. You know, it's like he understood how to portray children in an adult story. And that really excited me. I wish there were more films that had like child protagonists, but not in the young adult form, not in like, YA novel format. Like, I've never actually seen Goosebumps or anything like that, so like I can't speak to the whether it's like good or not. But I know the movies that I watched involving children were stuff like Phantasm, uh, which is also about brothers, like in a crazy situation of grief that is beyond them. And I know that Phantasm is a movie that I've seen probably 100 times. I can't get enough of that movie. It just like I thought it spoke to aspects of my childhood. Like these guys working on this Barracuda car all the time, like was something that I felt like I knew. So like Phantasm was a pretty direct inspiration for Slapface. I was like, that's like, it fits a model that I want to do. Now Let the Right One In, I just thought it was a great movie. And like, it is one of those movies that enabled it to be possible to tell a story from a child's point of view that was meant to engage adult viewers, which I thought was really exciting. I love like I won't spoil the ending for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, but the ending of Let the Right One In is so scary and so powerful and so memorable. The images are so wonderfully horrific and extreme and violent. I'm sure Let the Right One In was on the brain when I was making this movie, making Slapface, just because I think it's a great film. But The Babadook is another movie that involves like a child and a monster. It's just told from a different point of view. It's told from the point of view of the parent, the mother, and the monster represents a whole different set of fears to a parental figure than to a child. But the thing that the right one I identified with was it's from a child's point of view. Like it's from a child's perspective, which Slapface shares with that, and like Let the Right One In is a film to be studied for like how to tell an adult story from a child's perspective.
And it's funny you bring up the Babadook. That was kind of what I compared it to, but I was like, not in like a bad way, because some people seem to not like the Babadook, but I kind of saw the parallels between it a little bit and just the different perspective it's being told from.
Yeah, I think it's, I enjoy that movie a lot. I think Jennifer Kent is a great director. And I think that movie is like, the mechanism of that movie is different than Slapface, but I think that the way that it is about a relationship between a parental figure, a child, and a monster, like you could certainly draw parallels with Slapface in a way that could be interesting.
Now, does Tom really care about his brother, or is it just like, it seems like everybody in this town has a dependent relationship with somebody?
I think that Tom thinks he loves his brother. Like I think that he thinks he's protecting his brother and taking care of his brother and doing the best he can. But like Tom doesn't really have the emotional equipment or the bandwidth to know what to do. He's not much more than a child himself. He would rather be like down at the bar, picking up girls and like, showing off and like, being a stud. He did not ask to be the parent. So I think he loves his brother. I think he wants what's best for his brother, but he's not getting an A in the taking care of your brother department. He's getting a C-. It's like he just doesn't have the tools to be able to do the thing that he feels is his obligation to do.
But he's trying.
I think he's doing his best, but like, the model that he's using is toxic. It's like he learned something from his dad that he thinks is the way to do it. And he's just applying a model that shouldn't be used in the first place to raising his kid brother.
And are the twins with Mariah, are they supposed to be like equivalent to Lucas with the witch? They kind of bring out the worst in each other?
Yeah, it would seem, it's like only through a little bit of a goading, it brings out the worst in Mariah. But, she behaves differently when she's around Lucas than when she's around the twins. And she's trying to hold space for both of those things. But it's almost like when you're, like when people are having a extramarital affair or something like that, they're living between two worlds. And those worlds, once they collide, will smash into one another. And it just is a system that fundamentally cannot work.
And it feels like with that town, there's like the only two nice people are the sheriff and Anna.
Well, I think that they just have a limited world that they have access to, and I think it's, I think that in a different situation, it would be great that Anna came into the world of like Tom and Lucas, because she's able to, through her saying stuff like I'm a Wiccan, she's able to access stuff with Lucas in a way that he might not otherwise have access to. And if Tom and Anna were given enough space and were able to reconcile, maybe they could work it out, So like, I think Anna is a positive force in their lives. And finally, someone is like living there that is looking at what they're doing and saying like, what the hell are you guys doing? That's dysfunctional. That's fucked up. There's like, that's really, by looking at, often the abuse and the abuser, they normalize the system of abuse. And it's like, well, that's just what we do, like there's some hitting, but like, it's just for the greater good or whatever. Or like, oh, it didn't hurt me that bad. But then when a third party is there saying like, you are slapping a little boy, it's like, Tom immediately gets defensive. Is like, I'm not abusing my brother, but like having that outside source looking in can be very valuable and allow you insights into yourself. And the the sheriff, I was extremely grateful that we cast an actor that I really admire named Dan Hedaya, who was in one of those movies that I saw when I was a kid. You know, he was in a movie called Blood Simple, which is the first film by the Coen brothers. And I remember watching that movie and saying, you know, it was one of my first times watching a movie and understanding the relationship of the camera to what was happening. You know, there are shots in that movie that Roger Ebert had described as like, it felt like these filmmakers thought they'd never get a chance to make a movie ever again. So they're pulling out all the stops and going for it all the way. And when I saw Blood Simple, I was like, yeah, that's what I would want to do too. I would want to make something like that, where I'm going to put everything into it the moment that I can. Anyway, like, so Dan Hedaya playing the sheriff was essentially playing somebody that inspired me as a younger person in a role of a mentor figure who is doing his best, who cared about the family, who seems to have cared about the mother, but is also getting a little tired of giving away what he calls get out of jail free cards.
I mean, he's not wrong.
It's that kind of, yeah. Say again?
He's not wrong. He does give a lot of chances.
Yeah. You see where it all leads, which is tragedy. Like whether, you know, and that's the thing that, you know, when people watch the movie, there's that ambiguity of like, is the monster real? Is the monster all in Lucas's head? And, you know, the thing that I want to say about that is like, whether the monster is real or not, you know, it's like the tragedy that this family is barreling towards feels like it would happen inevitably either way, whether there was a monster or whether there was not a monster. And, you know, I think that the movie could be taken as, you know, all right, the monster is a manifestation of this kid's anger, you know, or this monster is, you know, or the monster is real and the same thing, you know, like the monster is like, was brought about by like Lucas wanting this thing and like bring that into existence. And either way, you know, I think that like the situation that befalls Tom and Lucas probably would be the same either way, whether whether this witch is a present real thing or not.
And the blue flowers that lead to the witch, what flowers were those? Because I kind of thought of Batman Begins a little bit, where he has to bring the flower up the mountain.
I'm really flattered by the comparison to Batman Begins, because I also really like that movie. But I think Batman Begins is like using an element of, you know, that sort of like magical storytelling of like, well, if you follow this trail of magical objects, it will lead you to wisdom, you know, or whatever, you know. And Batman Begins is not doing magical realism or anything like that, but it is an element of like fantastical storytelling that allows Bruce Wayne to get up there and like learn from these mystical people, you know, and they created a mystical environment around them. So yeah, I you know, once again, it's like I actually really love that part of Batman Begins. There's a lot I like about that movie, but you know, I think it's the same thing as Snow White, which is that like they're drawing from older stories and incorporating them in a new way. I mean, that's the thing that I think is so great about Batman Begins. It's constantly pulling old narratives, whether they're like, you know, I mean, like Batman has been around since, I guess, the 1930s or 1940s, yeah. And Christopher Nolan did this very sleek, very modern updating of it that felt like it was, you know, you're like, oh yeah, this is kind of a Batman that almost could exist in reality. You know, it's like Christian Bale has those Fight Club bruises on him after being Batman, and you know, it's like still a superhero movie, but it has elements of the crime movie and the, you know, Obi-Wan Kenobi training you to use the Force movie that I think like make it really special. It's like once you start taking those mystical things and then commenting on them, like the Liam Neeson character says, use mysticism and elements of what we perceive as magic to essentially fake out and confuse your opponent. You know, I thought that Batman Begins did a great job of taking the elements of superhero movies that we might perceive at the time as being silly and like grounding them in a kind of like, up to the minute Michael Mann style, you know, here we are, like, you know, we're building the Batmobile in our garage, you know, kind of thing.
But what were the name of the flowers you were using?
You know, I'm trying to remember like what those actual flowers were. I know that like in the script they were like specifically described as blue petals that we would have. And then the production designer, Kat Van Cleve, who I worked with a lot, like found and sourced these petals and then showed them to me. And it's like, is this what you have in mind? I was like, yes, so it's perfect. So much like John Carpenter's Halloween, where they had bags full of leaves in California, like spraying them around all over the place. We had bagfuls of these like blue flowers, constantly making trails of them in upstate New York. So like however she sourced them, they were actual flower petals that we had that we got by the pound. We had to pick them off of of these like branches and then stuff them in bags and then scatter them around wherever we went and then sweep them up again and use them in different scenes.
And what does the witch get out of the relationship? Obviously, Lucas gets companionship and somebody that's looking out for them. Is that also what the witch wants, or is the witch just looking for fresh meat?
I think she also wants a friend. I think that both the monster and Lucas have elements of Travis Bickle Taxi Driver, where like if Travis Bickle Taxi Driver just found a friend, then he wouldn't do some of the things that he did in that movie. And I think Lucas and the monster both are yearning to have somebody that will nurture them and love them and understand them and care for them and not treat them like a freak. And they get that from each other. They get this compassion and care from each other. And they both are able to hurt each other. Like when the monster perceives Lucas as spending too much time with Mariah, the monster gets jealous because, I thought I was your special friend, So there are elements, their need to be loved and to be seen and to be cared for are mutual feelings. They both feel that.
And we're both Universal monster fans as well.
Yeah.
Growing up, did you always want one of those monsters as like a companion? Like I always thought that would be cool as a kid if like I had Frankenstein just like walking around with me.
Same. Yeah, I always loved Frankenstein's monster. I always felt enormous sympathy and empathy for the creature, particularly Boris Karloff's performance, which is so full of yearning and so full of a desire to be cared for. It's like, it's so strange. I feel like the actor who plays the monster is always so criminally underappreciated. When you watch the credits for the 1930s Frankenstein, it says monster ... question mark. It doesn't even say Boris Karloff, because they so don't understand that the monster is the star of that movie and the heart and soul of that movie. And for a long time, Doug Jones, who did so much brilliant work with Guillermo del Toro had to constantly say that guy's name in interviews and say, Doug Jones is the guy. Like Doug Jones is the artist who inhabits these monsters and brings them to life for us. And even when we made Slapface, the producers were like, yeah, cast whoever is the monster, like every other part we're going to spend a lot of time on. And for the two big asks I had were like, can we please have Dominic Sevilla as the director of photography? Because in many ways he enabled this project to exist, and he's a brilliant artist, and we're old friends. And Lucas Hassel as the monster, because Lucas, I felt, could inhabit the creature very powerfully and soulfully. And I don't think they really cared that much who played the monster until they saw Lucas Hassel's work and saw how much the actor Lucas Hassel was contributing to this movie and how much beauty of the soulful side he invests in this monster, and how through his body he's able to express like not only the love but also the fear and also the rage and all of those feelings. And like without a brilliant actor underneath the makeup, it's just rubber and paint. Not to undervalue the work of special effects artists Tony O'Brien and Sandy Washington, who contributed to the monster, or to the wardrobe designer Anna Davis, who created that wonderful flowing robe and cowl. Lucas Hassel is the one who makes the monster real for the audience. Lucas Hassel is the one who makes that paint and prosthetics come to life in a way that they can treat the monster as a character and not as a prop.
Yeah, it worked out for you at the CineQuest Film Festival. It won the best feature for feature, thriller, horror, sci-fi. And how awesome was that to win the audience award for that?
It was really, really, really gratifying, because the effect that we wanted to have with this movie was to not only create a sense of dread in the viewer, but also to break their hearts. Our goal was really for the audience to go through the thrill ride of a dread-inducing, scary movie, But by the end of it, like if the audience was emotionally moved, then that would have been a real accomplishment for us. And after CineQuest and then Fright Fest, which was our next festival where it screened essentially on an IMAX screen, we got a lot of reports back that that people were moved to tears by the movie, and they were not expecting that. Like that, there were a lot of people who were shaken by the movie and had that emotional overhaul that we were hoping for. So the audience award is a result of CineQuest and the response from critics and audiences at Fright Fest. It was really gratifying because it was the effect that we were really hoping to achieve from audiences. But at the end of the day, you finish the film, you do the best you can, and then it does not belong to you anymore. You know, the movie belongs to whoever the viewer is, and they could like the movie or not like the movie. They can be scared of the monster or not scared of the monster. They can be pulled into the movie or not. You know, like they are the expert of this movie now. You know, it's like it belongs to every single person who watches it. But it was certainly like warmed my heart and my soul that like people were touched by the film, and the audience award at CineQuest was our first experience of that. And we were like, wow, we thought we made a movie that would creep people out, but like it went beyond our expectations, and we said we did the deeper thing that we wanted to do, which was to tell a story that would move people.
Yeah, the final images of that film are very powerful.
I would say the final image was not my idea. And we knew we were going to push in on a close up, but like August Maturo, who plays Lucas, he said, "Hey, Jeremiah, how would you feel if I looked directly into the lens?" And we were like 3 hours behind. Like we didn't go into overtime too often, but that night we were 3 hours into overtime, and we weren't going to shoot that scene two ways. We were going to make a choice and go with it. And I remember August was looking at me, and he said, "Maybe we can do it both ways." And I said, "No, let's do it with you looking into the lens. Let's just commit to that." And then he did it, and the effect was extremely moving for us on set. We all felt the power of August's performance, and that's the last thing that the audience is left with. The last image that they have is this one, and I must credit August with the power of that idea. I'm glad that I listened to him.
That's crazy that he's that young of an actor, but had that presence to think of that.
Yeah, he was 12 years old when we made the film, and he was like 12 going on 40. It was very much like working with an old soul. He's a really interesting guy. Like I never treated him like a child actor, whatever that means. I treated him like a collaborator and an equal. Like he's the main character in the movie, and it's all being carried by him. And I wanted him to be in the movie really badly. When we were casting the film, the casting director, Carolyn Sinclair, and producer Mike Manning and I, we all make lists of actors that we dream of. Who would we like to play this part? And all three of us wanted August Maturo. We remembered him from Girl Meets World, and the investors of this movie were really happy because he was in The Nun, which made so much money. But like, he's done a lot of independent films, and he's a very singular, idiosyncratic, interesting actor. So he was, we made an offer to August, and then we auditioned a bunch of other kids. And the other kids, they could access some of the things we wanted. Like they could access rage, or they could access sadness. But it's very hard for a 12-year-old child actor, even a very good one, to be able to do all the different things that are required of this character. And we knew that August could do it. We knew that he was fully emotionally available for everything. Thankfully, he read the script and he really wanted to do it. It spoke to him. He felt powerfully about the role. And the only other question I had after that was, is he going to be a brat? Is he going to be a little monster? Is he going to have a domineering stage mother? And I had no, there's no ability. He lives in Los Angeles. He was named talent. There was really no way for us to check that. We just had to trust that he would be okay. We knew he would be a great actor. And then after meeting him and meeting his mother, all those concerns went away because August really, really cares about acting. He is like an actor's actor who cares about the craft of acting. He cares about the character. He cares about being in the moment. He cares about being present. He cares about telling the story. And his mom was doing all the right things. I mean, she was extremely encouraging of his career while not pushing him in any way. She was there to support and encourage and be present for him, to help, and to be there for the movie. But I never felt her pushing him or prodding him to want to do something he did not want to do. He wanted to be there so badly, and he was a great ally. He reminded me a lot of me when I was his age, where he was very curious and very smart and very well read and loves movies and all this stuff. And his ability to access difficult feelings without traumatizing himself was a great gift. It's something I value in an actor. Is like I like to make films that are really dark and really disturbing with a lot of violence in them. But I don't want to work in an environment that is violent, and I don't want to work in an environment where if you're playing a character with PTSD, you will inflict your PTSD on everyone. That does not interest me, because we have to live in the world of this movie for the duration of the shoot, and we have to be able to go all the way into the darkness. And the way we can do that is by being safe with each other and by being good dance partners with each other and taking care of each other. And like when the actors are slapping one another, we rehearsed all that stuff, and we had a great stuntman named Matt Kerr. And we did all that stuff to such a degree that they could play these slapface games without making contact with each other, making it look like they did actively through the power of stunt work. But like they could play the feeling of attacking one another, and they could play the feeling of hurting one another while feeling completely safe, which is very important to me because, I intensely dislike a state of siege atmosphere. I don't like it when actors, particularly name talent, like yell at the crew or anything like that, because often those people have all the power, and those people are not going to get fired, because like the financing is based on them. Like the director will get fired before name talent gets fired, but I love it when actors care about the movie and care about the story and want to be part of the thing. Like Dan Hedaya was very much like that. When he showed up, he asked a lot of questions. He's done 200 movies, and he was basically like, I can play any version of this sheriff. Now tell me about your movie, and tell me about Slapface, and tell me about the game that the brothers play, and tell me about like what my relationship is to them. Because Dan Hedaya, when he's not acting, is also a painter, and he looked at this movie as a canvas, and he was like, how am I part of your mosaic? Like, how do I fit into the world of your movie? Which I thought was extremely generous of him. And that's the kind of actor that I really love working with, the kind that, where we're all making the same movie and we're all in it together.
That's awesome. And I got to ask you about festivals, because it seems like we always hear from directors that when they go to festivals, they're nervous until the first screening of the movie, and then usually after that they're okay. Do you ever get nervous with festivals?
No, I think it goes back to that thing that I said before, which is like once we've shot the movie, we've edited the movie, we've sound designed it, we've color graded it. Like if I'm able to finish that movie and I feel great about the work that we've done, then I can say that is the furthest that I can go. Everything else after that does not belong to me. So while I love reading reviews that like interpret the movie in an interesting way, or people, I prefer reading a review that likes the movie than not liking the movie. But like ultimately, I let go. I detach. I say like, all right, now our only job is to put it out there into the world and talk about the film. And like, I consider the interview process part of the process of making the movie more than screening the movie for the audience, because you and I are having a conversation. But like when the movie is screening in front of an audience, I'm not having a conversation with them. The movie is having a conversation with them. It's up to them whether they like the movie or not. And, there have been movies that I've made where I was unhappy with the result. It's like there have been features that I've made where it's like, man, wish I'd done a better job with that. And if you read a review that says like you could have done a better job with that, I'm like, yeah, I know. I wish I had, or I wish the producers had listened to me and like done it a different way. And you just don't have control over some of that stuff sometimes. I've been a work for hire director on all those other features, and like those cuts were not up to me, and to varying degrees of like it's like I'm happier with some than with others, but not like a lot of them were not really my story to tell. I was serving someone else's story. And with Slapface, like I felt like when we finished making that movie, I told the movie that I wanted to tell, the way I wanted to tell it, with the actors that I wanted to work with producers who were there for me and cared about the project as much as I did. It's like I felt wholly creatively satisfied by the process. And I felt like whatever happens with the movie after this, it's like, I don't want to say icing on the cake, but like, it's like, what will happen. I'm not nervous about the reaction to the movie because they'll either like it or they won't, you know. And fortunately for Slapface, it's like the reviews have been predominantly really great, and the festivals have responded to the movie. I love that like a lot of diverse audiences have responded to the movie in wonderful ways. Like children have really liked the film, and queer audiences have really liked the film, and people of all different ages and social groups and so on have liked the film. I like it's like I said, it's like nice to read when critics interpret the movie in an interesting way that I hadn't thought of before. All that stuff is great, but like really, like I won't lie, like it was extremely satisfying when Shudder picked up the film because I love Shudder. The thing I like about Shudder is that like their programming, you can watch Shudder and you can see, a movie like, like Terrifier, where you're seeing Art the Clown like wiping people out in wonderfully gory ways, and like they're amassing a huge body count, and the satisfaction of that movie is watching that. And then you can also watch something like Jacob's Wife, starring Barbara Crampton, which is a satire that like gets into like the deep underpinnings of like being in a marriage and making your relationship work. And then you can watch something like The Last Thing Mary Saw or Hellbender, where it's like a slow burn with deep, characters, and Shudder's not paying me to say this. I just really like Shudder, like, so when Slapface was picked up by Shudder, I took that as a total win because I thought Shudder has something for everybody. And if audiences want to see something like Slapface, they can find it on Shudder. And if they don't want to see something like Slapface, they can watch Terrified. It's like Shudder has it all. And then there's people like me who like both of those things. I choose both. But it's like Shudder. Like the reason that felt like a real win was because they really love horror movies. And they really care about like a diverse palette of programming. And like having a little something for everybody, which is the kind of company that I like to keep, But like having said that, it's like it's also been really great meeting people like the Addams family who made Hellbender, because we talked to each other. He said, "Hey, what's your experience been like? Hey, we trade notes, like, and they've become colleagues, and they've become people that we share our experiences with one another. And that's really, really great. Like the horror filmmaking community is indeed a community where like people do check in with one another and say, "Hey, what was such and such person like to work with? Oh, they were great," or they have a substance abuse problem, or oh, they really didn't give a fuck about our movie once they cashed their check, or whatever. It's like it's great to be part of that. Like Shudder, in addition to like being part of a family of films, has like opened other doors and other relationships with other filmmakers that I care about, whose work I really like, and we're able to talk shop about those things in a way that is satisfying.
Yeah, we're big fans of Shudder. Like you said, they have a wide array of movies on there, and we're big fans of Terrifier and Jacob's Wife.
Yeah.
And we want to thank you for coming on and talking about Slapface today. Do you have any upcoming projects?
Yeah, I'm in post right now on a feature that we shot a month and a half ago down in Savannah, Georgia. It's a film called The Boo Hag, and it's also a monster movie, but it's kind of the inverse of Slapface. If Slapface is a New England, tale of loneliness, the Boo Hag is steeped in Southern folklore, and is a different kind of monster. The monster that inhabits other people's skin and hides inside of other people, and takes place predominantly within a very, very specific Black community called the Gullah Geechee community, which is not represented very much in movies. There was a film back in the early 90s called Daughters of the Dust. It was a Sundance movie that took place within that community. But the producers had come to me saying, "We want you to bring your Slapface thing to our movie that we've been trying to get made for 7 years." And I was like, well, this is such a rich, interesting folklore that I want to listen to and help to represent and learn about, and we made that film in that community, and we're in post right now. It was made by much of the same crew as Slapface, and the editor is the same. So it's like a lot of the same people working on it, but a very different kind of monster in a very different kind of world. And being down in Savannah, Georgia, being a New Englander myself, felt like being on another planet. It's like I might as well have been on Mars or something like that. Like it's got a rich, ghost-like, strange history, and much like the Overlook Hotel, not all of the history is good.
That sounds awesome. And do you have any idea around when that'll be coming out? Or
we're aiming for October of this year, and certainly, like once we've got it coming and we're doing the festival thing, we'll send out. Like we have a PR company working with us, so like certainly like they will help us get the word out to everybody and say like this is what's happening. But yeah, I'll certainly like keep you guys posted because I really enjoyed this conversation, and if the opportunity presents itself for us to talk again about the Boo Hag or something else, I'd be happy to.
Oh yeah, we'd love to have you on again. And where can people find you online?
Well, my name is Jeremiah Kipp, and that's very easy to Google. Also, there aren't a lot of other Jeremiah Kipps. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook. And also, if people are particularly interested in Slapface, they can follow the journey of that movie on Instagram and Twitter by following Slapface Film. And on Facebook, I think it's called Slapface the Feature Film or Slapface Feature Film, because there's an archival Slapface short film from 2017 if people are curious to learn about the short. The short is not currently available online, but maybe in the future we'll drop that somewhere, and people can see where it all came from. But yeah, I'm active on social media, and I like the form of communicating with others on social media. So, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
And we wanted to just thank you again for coming on and talking with us, and hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
I look forward to it.
Thanks to all the horror hounds and smokers out there for tuning in, and thank you again to writer and director of Slapface, Jeremiah Kipp, for joining us today. And stay tuned, follow us online, sign up for that newsletter, and we'll have an announcement of our next episode upcoming. And make sure to follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, at High on Horror 420. You can always send us Puff Ask questions at highonhorror420@gmail.com. You can always submit questions via our website, highonhorror.com. And while you're there, sign up for our newsletter so you get our latest episode and guest announcements sent directly to your inbox. And we just want to thank Josh again. Last week, our episode with John Stevenson, there was a lot of problems. Not on John Stevenson's end. It was all on our end. But Josh managed to put out a great episode. And like always, we'll have problems come up. And like I know I'll talk to some of my close friends and be like, oh, this happened. And when they listen, they can't tell anything. And that's just a testament to how great of a job that Josh does. Because if he's doing his job, you're not supposed to notice there was anything ever wrong with it to start with.
Exactly.
And I think we're done being sentimental. He's still a bitch, though. We love you, Josh. And I think that'll about wrap her up. Catch you later.
Bye, everybody.